Hey guys, tonight we journey deep into a world most people romanticize until they find themselves living it. You're not some dashing knight or cloaked assassin. No, tonight, you are a fresh-faced novice nun in a damp medieval convent, and it's 2 a.m. The first bell just rang. The air in your cell is so cold it bites. Your breath fogs in front of your face. You grope for your veil and habit in total darkness, barely able to distinguish cloth from stone. There's no fire, no candle, and certainly no heating. This is 12th century England, and the convent can't afford luxuries like warmth. You slept in your clothes anyway. Everyone does. There's no privacy here, not even from the cold. The bell tolls again. The sound is iron on iron, deep and metallic, echoing through the thick walls like a doom spell. That's Matins, the first service of the day. And yes, it's still night outside. The stars are the only things awake, besides you and 24 other shivering women stumbling out of their cells like medieval zombies. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your city and local time in the comments. I'd love to know who else is sleepless in this corner of the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle into the corridor. Your feet are bare because of course they are. That's how it's done here. There's a kind of twisted virtue in suffering, and the cold floors are part of your morning mortification. You're supposed to feel the pain. It keeps your soul humble. Stone meets skin with a brutal honesty. Each step is like walking across a butcher's slab. Your soul's practically peeling off from the damp. You pass Sister Hildegard, who nods grimly, already half-dressed and looking like she hasn't slept in a week. She probably hasn't. She's the convent sacristan, the one in charge of getting things ready for each service. That means her wake-up call is even earlier than yours. The hallway is lit only by the flickering flame of a single rushlight. Shadows dance across the stone walls like nervous ghosts. Your breath echoes in the corridor, and although there are 30 of you here, it somehow still feels lonely. That's something no one tells you about medieval convents. They're crowded and isolating at the same time. The chapel is colder than your cell. There's no insulation, no stained glass beauty like you'd see in movies. Just heavy stone, cracked wooden benches, and a crucifix so big it feels like it's judging you directly. It smells faintly of wax and mildew. The altar cloth is stiff with last year's dust. The prayers begin, Latin, monotone, endless. Your voice joins the others, hoarse and barely awake. You don't understand half of what you're chanting, yet you chant it anyway. Because Sister Agnes beside you will absolutely report you if you start mumbling gibberish. That's her thing. She's been here for 28 years and has a sixth sense for slacking. The rhythm of Matins is deliberately slow. It's not meant to uplift, it's meant to wear you down, like water over rock. This early service can stretch for 2 hours, depending on how generous the abbess is feeling. She's not generous today. The chill creeps into your knees as you kneel on the stone floor, then stand, then kneel again. It's a choreography of misery, a mainstream historical fact. Matins was a real thing, one of the 8 canonical hours in the divine office, and in many convents. It began well before dawn. For the sisters, sleep was a worldly weakness and a luxury. Your breath comes in shallow little clouds. You're halfway through Psalm 51 when your stomach growls so loud, Sister Beatrix glares sideways at you. You try to pretend it was just a cough. She's not fooled. Historians still argue whether the endless cycle of prayer in medieval nunneries was truly meant for spiritual refinement, or if it was just a method of psychological control, keep the body exhausted, keep the mind submissive, and no one questions the rule. Either way, it works. You feel hollowed out already, and the day hasn't even properly started. Your legs ache, your lips are cracked. You try to focus on the Latin words, but your brain keeps drifting. You remember that warm feather bed back home. You picture warm porridge with honey. You give anything for honey. Don't fall asleep. That's the golden rule. Just one nod, and someone tugs your sleeve. Twice. And you're staying behind for silent contemplation, which is basically kneeling alone for an extra hour. And if you're caught dozing during lauds later, there's the penitential bench. Or worse, your mind plays tricks on you. For a second you swear the wooden crucifix twitches. That's the sleep deprivation talking, or the rushlight behind it. You hope, eventually, finally, mercifully, the last psalm ends. There's no applause, no amen with gusto, just a quiet, collective exhale. Matins is done. You survived. Barely. You rise stiffly and follow the line of women back into the corridor. Your feet slap the cold floor again. Nerves burning with each step. You wonder how long before you lose all feeling from the ankles down. You've got maybe 15 minutes before lauds the next round of prayer. That's just enough time to return to your cell. Maybe splash some icy water on your face from the clay basin in the corner. No soap. Soap is for feast days or visitors. As you walk back, someone coughs hard behind you, wet and deep. You don't dare look. If it's consumption, no one will say anything. That's another unspoken rule here. Illness is weakness, weakness is sin. A dim glow ahead hints at the kitchen. Someone's already stirring the breakfast pot. You imagine fresh bread, maybe a piece of cheese, something warm. You're wrong. You make your way toward the refectory, your feet still numb and your fingers tingling from the cold chapel. There's no rush, because you already know what's coming, and you're not exactly eager to get there. The smell hits you first. Not bread, not anything inviting. Just something vaguely wet and vaguely gray. That's the breakfast gruel. The same oat mush as yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. You hear a wet thwack as a wooden ladle slaps another portion into a bowl. It sounds like someone trying to bury a mistake. You step into the room, your stomach trying its best to be optimistic. Maybe today it'll be thicker. Maybe it won't taste like wood shaving. But no. It's the same slop you've had every morning since arriving. Unsweetened, unsalted, unchewed by anyone but you. You sit on the hard bench, spine stiff, hands folded, eyes down, no speaking during meals. Silence is sacred and enforced. Sister Judith, the one with the lazy eye and the terrifying ladle, makes her way down the row. She doesn't just serve food, she serves judgment with it. If you flinch or frown, she remembers. You get a thinner bowl next time. She stops in front of you, leans close. Gratitude, she whispers, like a threat. Before dropping a scoop into your bowl, it lands with a dull plop. You nod. You don't dare say thank you, because that would be talking. And Rule 42 says, no talking at meals unless you're reading scripture. Which, lucky you, Sister Beatrix is doing right now in her nasal drone. She's on a passage about fasting and suffering. Fitting. You spoon the gruel into your mouth. It's warm. At least, it's something. Somewhere deep in the pot. A single weevil squirms. It won't end up in your bowl today, but it might tomorrow. Historians agree that monastic diets were planned by design, intended to mortify the flesh and purify the spirit. Meat was typically forbidden, even for the sick. Butter was rare, and sugar, you wouldn't even recognize it if it were handed to you. In this place, flavor was a sin. You sit, chewing the tasteless mush slowly, forcing yourself to swallow. You try to think of something else. Anything else. Maybe the warm fires of your family's hearth back home. But no, thinking of home only makes this harder. It's best to pretend this is all there is. Because for some of these women, it is... You glance at the nun across from you. Sister Magdalena. She's got that 1,000-yard stare. The kind of look soldiers get after too many winters. You've never heard her speak. Not once. She just eats like this every morning, like she's chewing her own shadow. And that silence, it's not peaceful. It's oppressive. The sound of spoons scraping clay bowls is all you hear. That and the scripture. Always the scripture. Today's verse, man shall not live by bread alone. You almost laugh. Almost. Then someone coughs again. That same deep, rattling cough you heard earlier. A few heads turn, but quickly look away. Coughing is contagious. Not just the illness, but the suspicion. You start to wonder if it came from you. You try to finish your meal, but there's no joy in it. Just obligation. You eat because you're told to. Because the rule commands nourishment. Because without it, you can't work and, oh yes, work is coming. After this, manual labor. Everyone gets a task. It's good for the soul, they say. You scrape the last of the gruel from the bottom of your bowl. Surprised there's not more grit in it today. Some days you swear they add sand just to make it last. One time, Sister Imelda found a twig in hers. She just blessed it and chewed it anyway. Probably thought it was penance. Once everyone's bowls are empty, the meal ends with a bell because of course it does. Every part of your day is carved by bells. Bells for rising, bells for prayer, bells for labor, bells for sleeping. Sometimes you hear them in your dreams, or in the silence, and you forget whether you're awake. They rule more than the abyss. You all rise in unison. It's not rehearsed, it's drilled. The benches scrape back with a wooden sigh. Then, still in silence, you form a line. Time to receive your daily assignment. You're praying quietly, desperately, that it's not toilet duty, or stoking the ovens, or anything that involves water. Your hands still haven't thawed from matins. You approach the work list. Sister Hildegard stands beside it like a bouncer with rosary beads. She gives you a quick glance, then points. Firewood hauling. You almost sigh with relief. Almost. It's one of the lesser punishments. Grueling. Sure, but at least you won't smell like latrine or burn your fingertips on iron pots. Outside, the air is no warmer than it was at 2 a.m. The sun has finally risen, but the clouds are thick and gray, and the wind slices through your habit like a knife made of damp wool. You wrap your arms around yourself and trudge toward the wood pile. The logs are wet. Of course they are. Nothing in this place is dry. You begin the first trip toward the convent storage shed. It's a 15-minute walk uphill, and the logs are heavier than you remember. You can't feel your fingers by the time you return. Repeat, again and again. By the fourth trip, your arms are shaking. Your back burns. Your stomach grumbles. But no one speaks. Not even the chickens. They scratch around your hemline as you pass, eyeing you like you're part of the scenery. You spot Sister Agnes in the corner, sweeping leaves into a pile. She's watching you. She always is. You nod as you pass. She doesn't nod back. just files it away. That's the thing about this place. Everyone's always watching. Not for help. For failure. A quirky tidbit. Some nunneries actually assigned animal care as part of penance. And certain sisters developed lifelong attachments to their chickens or goats. You're not so lucky. These chickens are jerks. By mid-morning, your hands are red, raw, and splintered. The bell rings again. You think it's for prayer. You're wrong. That bell isn't summoning you to prayer. Oh no. It's worse. It's summoning you to the latrines. Or, as they're politely called here, the re-retorter. It sounds almost charming, doesn't it? Like something you'd find tucked behind a charming inn in a travel novel. But don't be fooled. The re-retorter is the most dreadful place in the convent, and quite possibly the entire medieval world, if your nose has anything to say about it. You don't head there by choice. No one does. But once that bell rings mid-morning, it's time for what they call the bodily cleansing hour. It's not as noble as it sounds. In reality, it's 30 women trudging silently to defecate over an open trench. And yes, you're one of them. You join the procession bare feet slapping against the cold flagstones, habit flapping at your ankles. Your bladder now suddenly aware that it's not going to enjoy this. There's no conversation, just the squish of wet steps and the creak of old wooden doors opening to what might as well be a pit straight out of Dante Third Circle. The stench hits you like a wall, not slowly, not subtly, like a punch to the lungs. Decades centuries of human waste just festering in the darkness below. You choke it down because everyone else is pretending they don't smell it, and the rule says humility before comfort. A tear slips from your eye. You pretend it's from devotion. Inside, the toilets are long wooden planks, more accurately described as benches with holes in them. No partitions, no doors. Just a cold row of suffering. You pick a spot as far from Sister Hildegard as you can. She's infamous for belching during her business and then blessing herself like it's a holy act. You perch delicately over the hole. It's an act of balance, of will, of humility, because even though you're desperate to go, your body is not thrilled about evacuating while Sister Petronilla sighs loudly beside you and Sister Claire mutters a quiet Hail Mary on the other side. It's hard to know what's worse, the smell, the lack of privacy, or the soft splash of someone else's moment of repentance beneath your feet. Quirky tidbit. In some convents, nuns were assigned to clean the re-retorter by hand, literally, not with gloves, because those didn't exist. With bare, chapped, penitential fingers. There were even specific saints prayed to for strength in the task. Saint Catherine of Alexandria may have died a martyr, but here, she's invoked when someone drops a rosary into the pit. You finish as fast as your nerves allow. You stand, careful not to look down. There are things in that pit that do not deserve eye contact. You back away, adjusting your layers, and make your escape into the open air. The breeze outside feels like a miracle. Cold, but clean. You breathe in deeply, gag once, then try again. It's better than what's behind you. Now to the wash basin. If you're imagining a sparkling silver bowl with scented water and crisp linen towels, please adjust your expectations. What you get is a stone trough filled with rainwater, leaves, and probably a drowned beetle or two. You dunk your hands in and scrub as best you can. No soap, of course. Soap is reserved for feast days or emergencies. You, friend, are neither. Historians still debate whether medieval convents had a meaningful understanding of hygiene. Some suggest that these frequent ritual washings were an accidental victory against illness. Others say it was all symbolic. and the germs won every time. Judging by the green film floating on this water, you're siding with the germs. You dry your hands on your skirt because there are no towels, naturally, and start to walk back toward the cloister, but your reprieve is short-lived. Sister Hildegard is standing by the archway, arms folded, mouth pressed into the expression of someone who's just bitten into a lemon and decided to raise it as her only child. She beckons. You're being reassigned. Apparently, the wood hauling team has enough help today, and now you're being drafted for interior cleansing. Translation: get on your knees and scrub the cloister halls until they shine, or until your hands bleed, whichever comes first. You accept a bucket of vinegar and coarse linen cloth without a word. Speaking out of turn would only earn you a reprimand, or worse, a lecture. And honestly, you take bleeding knuckles over a lecture from Hildegard any day. The cloister hallway stretches ahead of you, cold stone floor, arched ceiling, narrow windows leaking in pale gray daylight. You kneel, dip your cloth in the vinegar, and begin. Scrub, scrub, scrub. The rhythm sets in. Your shoulders burn. Your fingers go raw. You try not to let your mind wander, but it's impossible not to think about how you got here. About what life might have been like had you married that baker's apprentice instead of choosing the convent. At least his bread didn't talk back. You glance sideways. Sister Magdalena is scrubbing the opposite wall. She doesn't speak. You've never heard her speak. She just works. Silently, hour after hour, with the detached look of someone who is fully dissolved into the stone. Every now and then, you hear something in the distance lauder, maybe from the village beyond the wall, or the clatter of horse hooves on the road. Sounds of life, sounds of not this. And then the bell rings again. You freeze. Not because you're done, no. You're far from done. But because that bell means something different. It means someone's requested penance. Publicly. Voluntarily. That's right. It's time for the penitential whip. You rise stiffly, leaving your bucket and rag behind, and follow the others into the chapel. This is not a joyful gathering. There is no singing, just solemn silence. Sister Cecilia stands at the front. She's young, probably only a few years older than you, and shaking. Her eyes glisten, but she doesn't cry. Instead, she kneels, confesses in a trembling voice that she had impure thoughts during morning prayer. No details are required. Everyone understands the gravity. The abbess nods once. That's all it takes. Cecilia removes her scapular, revealing a thin linen shift beneath, and produces the small whip of flagellum, knotted and worn with use. You watch as she raises it, hesitates for the briefest second, then brings it down across her own back. Snap. The sound is quiet, intimate. The kind of sound that should be private. But here, it's not. You're all expected to witness, to learn. Snap. Again. And again. Each lash is met with a tiny flinch, but she doesn't stop. Not until she reaches 15. You count them. Everyone does. When it's over, she bows her head and returns to her place, her face pale and unreadable. Historians still argue how common self-flagellation really was in medieval convents. Some sources claim it was reserved for rare acts of repentance. Others suggest it became disturbingly routine during times of social or spiritual stress. Whatever the truth, you just saw it happen. Right in front of you. You kneel once more, your knees numb, your throat dry, and just when you think your day might relent, the bell rings again. You rise again, knees groaning like old church pews, The bell that just rang? That's not the end of anything. That's the beginning of Lauds, the second major prayer service of the day. And you're already late. Your legs are stiff. Your spine feels like a cracked broom handle. But you hobble back into the chapel with the rest of the sisters, eyes fixed on the stone floor, lips already trying to form the right Latin verse before your brain catches up. No one speaks. No one smiles. This isn't a joyful devotion and a spiritual calisthenics, and you're running on fumes. You return to your assigned seats. Assigned, down to the exact footstep. The rule of St. Benedict doesn't leave much room for spontaneity or comfort. You kneel again. And this time, something deep in your joints audibly pops. You hope it wasn't important. The cold bites worse than before. Somehow the chapel feels colder after having been filled with people. It's the stones. Probably they soak up heat like secrets and never give them back. You begin to chant. The rhythm returns, slow, deliberate, and absolutely endless. Your voice blends with others in that soft, monotone drone. If Gregorian chant were a color, it would be the gray of wet wool. And right now, you are very wet and very wool covered. You glance sideways for a moment, just a second too long. The abbess notices. Her eyes are like arrows dipped in holy oil. She says nothing. She doesn't have to. Her glance is already a punishment. You silently promise to do better, to stare directly into the Psalms and never let your eyeballs wander again. Today's reading is from Psalm 102, something about dust and fleeting days and God's eternal wrath, comforting stuff. You mutter the verses with a numb tongue, barely parsing their meaning. The words are meant to elevate your soul, but all you can think about is whether the gruel was slightly thicker today or if you're just losing your sense of taste. Mainstream historical fact: Lauds was a cornerstone of the daily divine office in all Benedictine communities. It usually occurred just before sunrise, designed to welcome the light spiritually, though in your case, you were still squinting through pitch-dark windows and praying for something resembling a sunbeam. Your knees are screaming again. You shift slightly, just slightly, but it's enough for Sister Agnes to notice. Her head doesn't even turn, but her eyes flick sideways like an owl's. She'll mention it in your next correction. You're sure of it. She always does. Your mind drifts again. It's not even rebellious at this point, it just goes. You think about your hands, how they're chapped and swollen from yesterday's scrubbing, how your fingernails seem permanently edged with soot and dirt. There's a cut near your thumb that refuses to heal. You think about it during prayers now. It's your new hobby. You catch yourself. You try to focus. Damen. Exaudioration meme. That's Lord. Hear my prayer. You hope he's listening, because no one else is. Halfway through the reading, someone sneezes. A big, wet, body-racking sneeze. A few heads twitch, but no one dares look directly. Illness is everywhere, but acknowledging it is a risky game. Sick nuns get quarantined in the infirmary, and the infirmary is not a place people come back from quickly. Or at all. You keep chanting. Quirky detail. Some convents kept a sin book where sisters could write anonymous confessions about themselves or others. You're fairly certain Sister Agnes contributes at least 3 entries a day. Possibly in rhyme. After Lauds ends, you stand slowly. The stiffness in your back has calcified into something permanent. As you shuffle out of the chapel, your stomach growls again. But there's no second breakfast. Just the promise of more work. Always more work. You're assigned back to the scriptorium. That sounds nice, doesn't it? Like a scholarly retreat. A place of knowledge and quiet focus. You walk down the corridor, hopeful, until you open the door. The scriptorium is colder than the latrines, somehow. The windows are tiny slits in the stone wall, and they let in just enough light to make your life miserable. Candles flicker on long wooden tables, illuminating dust motes and ink stains and the hunched backs of a dozen miserable scribes. You take your seat and look down at today's assignment. A full page of the Book of Psalms, to be copied by hand, with quill, on rough parchment. Every letter must be perfect, every flourish correct, any mistake, and you start over. From the beginning, you dip your quill in the ink pot. Your fingers are stiff, trembling slightly. You begin. In principio creavit Deus caelum et terram. The ink blotches slightly. You blot it with a scrap of linen and pray no one notices. You keep writing. Hours pass. Your back aches. Your eyes blur. At one point, you swear the words on the page start moving. That's how tired you are. Your vision pulses with little bursts of light whenever you blink too hard. Historians still argue whether nuns were really the main scribes in monastic scriptoria, or whether monks did most of the work and nuns handled simpler tasks. But in your convent, the sisters copy everything. Psalters, gospels, hymnals, you name it. It's holy work, which means it never ends. You glance at Sister Elfrida beside you. She's been copying the same manuscript for 5 weeks. Her ink-stained fingers look like they belong to a coal miner. She hasn't blinked in an hour. You start to worry, just as your lower back finally gives out a small, audible pop. The bell rings again. You think it might be the mid-morning break. You think wrong. That bell doesn't mean rest. It never does. In a medieval nunnery, bells are never your friends. They don't ring to mark anything good. They ring to remind you that your body isn't yours, that your time isn't yours, that even your thoughts are expected to be on loan to God. And right now, this bell means manual labor continues. You blink, hoping for a reprieve. There isn't one. You rise from your stiff-backed bench in the scriptorium, joints creaking like old hinges. The parchment in front of you is half filled, ink drying in delicate black curls. If you were lucky, you'd be allowed to finish your copying before being shuffled off again. But you're not lucky. Sister Hildegard stands at the door like a storm cloud in human form. She's holding a bucket. You know that bucket. It's not the friendly kind. You get your assignment with a silent gesture. The kitchens. Not to cook don't be absurd, but to scrub the hearth walls. Today is soot duty. You trudge across the cloister with the other unlucky novices, bucket in hand, shoulders slouched. The courtyard wind cuts sideways, pushing against your veil, which keeps flapping into your face at the worst possible moment. You tie it down, but that's considered vanity. You reach the kitchen expecting warmth. Wrong. This is not a cozy medieval hearth like the ones painted in romantic children's books. It's a blackened stone hole that smells like scorched meat, old grease, and a vague hint of despair. A few embers still glow from the morning fire, but they radiate no warmth. The air is cold and greasy. It clings to your skin like failure. Sister Gertrude meets you there. She doesn't speak. She just points to the walls and then to the bucket, as if you're too slow to understand without physical instruction. She has one eye that doesn't track properly and a reputation for making novices cry. You nod, as respectfully as you can, and kneel. The floor's cold. Always cold. Your knees sink into grit and ashes as you start scrubbing with the vinegar-soaked rag. The smell of the vinegar mixes with soot into something acidic and vile. You cough. Once, then twice. Sister Gertrude glances sideways, and you pretend to be praying, even as tears spring to your eyes. Scrub, rinse, scrub, rinse. The black never comes out, not fully. It just smears into gray, like you're painting the wall with regret. The stones are rough, chipped, and completely unforgiving. They scrape your knuckles. Tiny white flecks of skin cling to the rag, but you don't stop. You can't. You think back to earlier how you were reprimanded for looking distracted during prayer. You didn't say a word, didn't even blink too hard. But the abbess has eyes like a falcon and a memory like a ledger. She noticed, and so now you're here, with the soot. Historians often emphasize how structured monastic life was, but they sometimes gloss over why control. Predictable routine wasn't just about divine rhythm. It was about keeping women like you too exhausted to question it. You're not meditating on eternity when your wrists are bleeding from stonework. Someone else joins you, Sister Agnella, another novice. She has 15, barely more than a child, and already has hands like an old gardener. She nods to you quietly and takes up her own rag. There's no conversation. There never is. Speech outside of designated hours is strictly forbidden. You learn to speak with glances, sighs, and the occasional raised eyebrow that says, "This is a bit much, isn't it?" You work until your arms ache and your fingers go numb from vinegar and cold. The smell of burning fat clings to your sleeves, your hair, your throat. You will carry it with you into evening prayers like a penitent offering. Finally, the bell rings again. You hope desperately that this is the one for terse. The next prayer session. Not because you're holy, because it means you get to sit down. You're herded back into the chapel. You fall into your place on the bench, knees stiff, back burning. The psalms start again. Same rhythm, same Latin, same verses you could recite, backward in your sleep by now. You close your eyes while chanting not out of reverence, but because it's the only place left where you can rest without punishment, until you feel her gaze again. The abbess. She's watching you from across the room. You've done something wrong. You don't know what, but she does. She always does. After the service, she summons you. She never yells. That would be undignified. Instead, she speaks slowly and with the full force of divine authority behind every word. You were inattentive during matins, she says. You must reflect. She assigns you to the cloister walk for silent contemplation. No speaking, no sitting, no resting, just walking and thinking, and being very aware of how far from home you are. You return to the cloister, the covered walkway that wraps around the convent garden. It's meant to be peaceful, meditative. In practice, it's a wind tunnel with religious architecture. You pace slowly, deliberately, your footsteps echoing beneath the arches. The stone underfoot is worn smooth by centuries of footfalls, women just like you, walking in circles, praying for guidance, or maybe just waiting for the next meal. Quirky detail? Some cloisters had painted murals of saints and martyrs to encourage reflection. Yours has none. Just bare gray walls and a single cracked crucifix. It tilts slightly to the left, as if the weight of centuries finally became too much. You feel the same way. You lose track of time. You forget what you're supposed to be reflecting on. Your mind wanders to strange places. What did your father say when he signed the letter that sent you here? Something about purity, or piety, or being too clever for a village girl. Eventually, a voice interrupts your pacing. It's time for confession. You kneel in the confessional chamber behind a wooden screen carved with tiny holes shaped like stars. The priest is old, not from your convent. He visits twice a week and smells faintly of candle wax and damp wool. He asks for your sins. You say the thing that sounds safe. I was distracted during prayer. It's always a good fallback. He sighs, assigns you 3 psalms and a reading from the Rule of St. Benedict. Easy, merciful. Maybe he didn't hear you properly. Or maybe he's too tired to care. You rise, bow, and leave. Historians argue whether confession in convents was truly confidential or just another form of surveillance. Based on how quickly Sister Agnes always finds out who confessed what, you're pretty sure the abbess gets the full report every time. You're finally dismissed. You try not to limp as you make your way across the courtyard. The bell rings again. Lunch? Nope. Vegetable prep? You're sent to the back courtyard, handed a knife that barely qualifies as sharp, and a basket of root vegetables hard as bricks. Onions, turnips, carrots that look like they were dug up during the Crusades. Sister Bertilla supervises. She believes the act of peeling is a form of divine obedience. She corrects your grip 3 times before you've even peeled a single turnip. You sit, knife in hand, fingers blistered and mind drifting. You begin. You sit on a crooked wooden bench, a basket of root vegetables at your feet, and a knife in your hand that's so dull. It could legally be classified as a spoon. You're cold, your fingers are numb, and your legs are still trembling from the scrub work earlier. But there's no time to feel sorry for yourself. Sister Bertilla is watching. She looms nearby, arms folded into the vast sleeves of her habit. Her eyes sharp beneath a brow that's perpetually disapproving. She doesn't speak much, just clears her throat ominously whenever someone peels a carrot too quickly or slices a turnip too carelessly. She's taken it upon herself to preserve the moral integrity of root vegetable preparation, and no one peels a potato in her presence without praying for divine accuracy. You pick up the first carrot. It's hard as bone, covered in dirt, and shaped like a question mark. You start scraping at it with your sad excuse for a blade. Flakes of skin peel away, revealing a pale orange beneath still, cold from the earth. You move slowly, too fast, and Sister Bertilla clears her throat. Too slow, and she clears it louder. Your hands cramp almost immediately. You've already spent the morning hauling firewood, scrubbing soot, and kneeling on stone floors. This is just another layer of discomfort stacked on top of the others. But you keep going, because in this place, obedience is survival. You peel and scrape, until your thumbs feel like they're disintegrating. A few other novices sit beside you in the cold courtyard. No one talks. The silence is enforced not just by rule, but by weariness. Words take energy, and you've got none to spare. Sister Agnella fumbles a beat and drops it. Bertilla swoops in like a hawk, retrieves it, and mutters something about wastefulness being a sin. You all nod solemnly. Of course it is. Everything is. Quirky tidbit: in some nunneries, vegetables were personified during Lenten place turnips, onions, and leeks becoming allegories for sin and virtue. You try to picture your carrot giving a moral sermon. It's not going well. Your nose runs from the cold. You wipe it with your sleeve and earn a glare from Bertilla. Apparently, using your sleeve for anything other than work is frowned upon. But it's not like you have a handkerchief, or tissues, or dignity. The vegetables pile up. Once peeled, they're dumped into a pot of cold water and carried into the kitchen for boiling. You won't see them again. You won't taste them either. The good cuts go to the senior sisters. What's left will be turned into something between soup and regret. And that's only if you're lucky. Historians agree that meals in most medieval convents were meager, but not necessarily unhealthy. A steady diet of grains, legumes, and vegetables could sustain life, just not joy. That's probably the point. You're not here to thrive. You're here to be obedient, invisible, and quiet. The bell rings again. This one you recognize. None. It's the midday prayer hour, not lunch. You let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding. At least it means sitting for a while. You stand, shake out your arms, and wipe your hands on your apron. Dirt under your nails. A small blister on your palm. You don't remember when that happened. Back to the chapel. Again. You kneel. Again. This time, your knees protest audibly. You can almost hear your joints whispering. Really? Again. You begin chanting. Your voice is little more than a whisper. Your tongue feels heavy. The Latin flows from your lips out of habit. It's muscle memory now. You don't even have to think. That's probably a good thing, because you stopped being able to think clearly sometime around sunrise. A draft creeps across the floor, curling under your habit. You pull your sleeves tighter around you. Across the aisle, Sister Magdalena is mouthing the words without making sound. Her lips move like a puppet's, eyes glassy. You wonder when she last slept properly. You wonder the same about yourself. Convertimini ad dominum diem vestrum. The words mean turn to the Lord your God. You try. You do. But right now, you mostly want to turn toward a fire and a thick wool blanket. Historians still argue whether these constant prayer intervals were truly spiritual practices or mechanisms of control. Either way, they're effective. You don't have time to question your place here. You barely have time to notice your own thoughts. The abbess's voice rises for the final verse. You follow, forcing your vocal cords into one last tremble of piety. And then, finally, the service ends. You expect to be released for lunch, at long last. But the abbess has other plans. She announces that Sister Margareta is unwell, and someone must take her place in the infirmary. Your stomach sinks. She points directly at you. Congratulations. You've been volunteered. You try not to look disappointed. Being sent to the infirmary isn't a punishment exactly, but it's not far off. It means cleaning chamber pots, tending to bed sores, and preparing herbal concoctions that smell like rotting grass and do absolutely nothing. Still, you nod and accept the new task. What else can you do? You follow Sister Honoria, the infirmarian, into the small stone building attached to the main cloister. It smells like old straw, bile, and crushed yarrow. Bedsiff, you can call them, that line the walls. Thin pallets stuffed with musty hay, each one covered in a coarse wool blanket. A nun moans softly from the far corner. You recognize her, Sister Odilia. She's been sick for weeks. They say she caught something during last winter's frost. Or maybe she just gave up. Honoria hands you a cloth and nods toward a pot in the corner. Change it, she says. That's all. Just those 2 words. You take the pot. It's heavy. You don't look inside. Outside. You dump it into a trench dug specifically for this purpose. The contents splash against frozen mud. A whiff of ammonia cuts through your nostrils like vinegar and despair. You breathe through your mouth and return. The work continues. Wipe brows, replace linens, mix another useless herbal poultice, lavender and sage, mash with vinegar. It smells like failure, but gives people something to believe in. Quirky fact: nuns were often the only available healthcare providers in their communities. Some became experts in herbal medicine, others just improvised and hoped for the best. You're definitely in the latter group. You crush dried leaves in a mortar, your hand too shaky to grind properly. Honoria watches, corrects your posture, and silently judges your mortar technique. You apply the poultice to Adelia's chest. She coughs, once wet, ragged, full of finality. You pause. Honoria motions you away. That's enough. You wash your hands in the icy basin. The water is brown from the last dozen washes. You don't ask if it's been changed today. Finally, the bell rings. This one you know is for lunch. You pray there's something more than turnip broth this time. You're wrong. Lunch. Or as it's more honestly known in the convent, your daily reminder that hunger can, in fact, become a personality trait. You file silently into the refectory with the other sisters. The sun is now high, though you wouldn't know it inside this dim, echoing stone hall. The windows are narrow slits designed not for light, but for discipline. Cold wind slips through them anyway. No fire burns. No warmth greets you. Just the long wooden tables, the empty bowls lined in silent expectation, and Sister Beatrix already perched at the pulpit with the book of Leviticus. You know what's coming. You take your seat on the hard bench, back straight, hands folded. The familiar creaks of worn wood and shuffling habits fill the room, and then silence. No one speaks. Not now. Not ever at meals. Talking is forbidden unless you're reading sacred scripture aloud. And even then, your tone must be humble, your volume soft. Because food is not joy, it is obedience. Sister Bertilla approaches, ladle in hand. She's carrying the soup pot like it contains the bones of a saint, though it's more likely just turnip water and despair. She doesn't look at you as she pours your portion, just slaps the ladle against the rim to signal that you better be grateful. The soup lands in your bowl with a wet plop, sloshing slightly. You look down, pale, translucent, the color of a ghost's sigh. You spot a single soft cube of what you assume used to be a carrot, floating like a survivor from a shipwreck. No bread today. No salt, no surprise. You raise your spoon and begin to eat, slowly, carefully, reverently. The broth is thin, warm. It tastes like what might happen if you whispered the word vegetable into boiling water. Still, you force it down, because you need it, and because the abbess is watching. Sister Beatrix begins reading Leviticus, chapter 26. If you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, then I will give you rain in due season. You chew your brothies. Chew and listen to the promises of divine obedience. Rain, harvest, peace. None of which are in your bowl. A mainstream historical fact. Monastic lunches were often just a step above fasting, especially during liturgical seasons like Lent or Advent. Even outside of those, meals were humble boiled grains, root vegetables, and legumes. Fish if you were lucky, cheese if you were divine, meat only if someone died and left a cow behind. Across from you, Sister Agnes is eating with surgical precision. Every spoonful exact, every movement sanctified. You think she's watching you from the corner of her eye? She always is. She never blinks. You adjust your posture just slightly. Sister Magdalena sneezes suddenly, sharp and wet. The entire row of novices stiffens, but no one looks. Illness here isn't just a health concern, it's a test of faith, of endurance, and of who's next. If you're lucky, You get assigned to night watch. If you're not, you share a bed with someone coughing blood and praying in Latin. And then it happens. Midway through the reading, a creak at the door, two novices carrying a stretcher, Sister Odelia, again. She's been in the infirmary for weeks now, pale, weak, and coughing like death has taken a personal interest. She's been brought to lunch, but not to eat, just to be present, to hear scripture, to fulfill the rule. Her eyes are half closed. Her hands twitch beneath a coarse wool blanket. They place her gently near the wall. No one reacts. That's the rule too. You continue eating. It's strange. Eating beside someone actively dying. But you get used to it. You're meant to. Death isn't an interruption here, it's part of the rhythm. Quirky tidbit? In some nunneries, the deathbed of a sister was placed in the refectory so the dying could feast on holy words during their final days. Food for the soul, not the stomach. You try not to think about that as you lift another spoonful of warm dishwater to your lips. The meal ends the way everything does here, with a bell. The reading stops mid-sentence. No one sighs. No one complains. You all rise as one bowl's in hand, faces blank, and walk to the washing trough outside. The washing station is a row of rain barrels lined with ice at the top and mystery at the bottom. You dunk your bowl into the cloudy water, scrub with a communal brush, and pretend not to notice the chunk of something that floats past your hand. You dry the bowl with your apron. That's what it's for. Aprons here serve every function except beauty. You return the bowl to its shelf and begin to head back toward your cell. Maybe, just maybe you'll get a brief rest. A moment to lie down. But no. You're intercepted. The abbess stands near the cloister arch, hands folded neatly, expression unreadable. Sister Delia needs watch tonight, she says, her voice quiet and final. You pause, just for a heartbeat. That's enough. She raises an eyebrow. Yes, Reverend Mother, you say. You bow your head and move on. You don't ask why you were chosen. No one ever does. Night watch is part of the cycle. When a sister is dying, someone must sit with her through the night, to offer comfort, to ensure prayers are spoken if she goes, to witness. You head back to your cell briefly, allowed an hour's rest, but your bed is straw and your body is too tense. You lie flat on your back and stare at the ceiling. You hear rats scurry above the beams. Your breath fogs slightly in the cold air. You do not sleep. Historians still argue whether these vigils were more spiritual or practical. Some suggest they helped prevent unnoticed deaths. Others believe it was about collecting soul, ensuring no one left the world without holy words in their ears. Either way, you'll be the one whispering them tonight. The bell rings. You rise. You wrap your shawl tightly around your shoulders and make your way to the infirmary. A single candle flickers on the small table. Sister Odelia lies curled beneath her blankets, face pale, lips cracked. She's breathing, but only just. You sit beside her on the rickety stool. The candle casts long shadows on the walls. The room is still, quiet, cold. You whisper a psalm. She stirs once, barely. Then the candle flickers again. It's going to be a long night. You sit beside the narrow infirmary bed, your spine already aching from the unforgiving stool, the cold seeping into your bones like it's trying to become part of your skeleton. Sister Odelia lies still beneath the coarse wool blanket. Her breathing is slow, uneven. You count the seconds between each breath not because it's helpful, but because it gives your brain something to do besides panic quietly. The room is dim. A single candle flickers beside her. It's wax pooling unevenly in the dish. The shadows stretch up the walls like fingers. You shift in your seat, just slightly, enough to keep the blood from settling into your hips. You're not allowed to fall asleep. That's the rule. You can pray, you can sit, you can whisper psalms, but if your eyelids close for more than a blink, you're in violation. It's only been 15 minutes. You whisper softly, this, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want." The words leave your mouth in a dry rasp. Your lips are cracked. You forgot to drink water today. Again. Sister Odelia stirs faintly, her head tilting a little toward your voice. You don't know if she hears you or if her body is just shifting from the chill. Either way, you keep going. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. You almost laugh. The irony is thick. There are no green pastures here, just graystone, freezing wind, and beds filled with straw and regret. But you say the words anyway, because the alternative is silence. And in the silence, your mind wanders to darker places. A mouse darts across the far wall, skittering along the edge of the stones. You watch it go. Mildly envious, it's warm somewhere, probably under the kitchen hearth. Maybe nibbling something you peeled this morning. You glance at Odelia. Her breath rattles, then stills for a second too long, before resuming. You almost called for help. Almost. Quirky historical detail? In some convents, nuns who died during the night were laid out in the chapel before dawn, surrounded by candles and chanted over for hours. But sometimes, especially during harsh winters or outbreaks of illness, there simply weren't enough healthy sisters to perform the rituals. Death became a quiet, shadowy guest. A log shifts in the hearth down the hallway, the sound echoing faintly through the stone. You can't see the fire, but you can smell it, faint wood smoke mixed with damp straw. It makes you long for warmth, for sleep, for something that isn't this endless waiting. You try to stay focused. You repeat another psalm, your voice nearly monotone now, lips moving from memory alone. Time passes strangely in the infirmary. It stretches and contracts. A single hour can feel like a day, while an entire night might vanish in a blink. You check the candlelets burned down nearly halfway. Still hours to go. Sister Adelia's breathing grows shallower. You sit up straighter. You lean in, just slightly. Her lips move. You lean closer. She whispers something. You can't hear it. You ask her to repeat it. Gently, she tries. The sound is like paper tearing. You make out one word, light. You nod, even if you don't understand. You take her hand dry, bird-like, fingers curled from age and fever. You don't know if it comforts her. It's more for you. Historians still argue about the psychological toll of night vigils on novices. Some orders believed it built character and devotion. Others, especially in later periods, began phasing out the practice entirely, replacing it with shifts or group watch. But in your convent, it's still one-on-one. Personal, exhausting. You close your eyes for just a second. You snap awake instantly. Your head had dipped. That's all, a dip. But if the abbess had seen it, she'd assign you fasting for a week. Or worse, buckle penance in front of the entire chapter. You sit upright. You murmur a few lines from the rule to ground yourself. Let the brethren sleep clothed and girded with belts or cords. You've never found that passage helpful. Just itchy. Another hour passes. Odelia hasn't spoken again. Her face is still. Breath shallow but present. You wipe her forehead with a damp cloth, wrung from the infirmary basin. The water smells faintly of rosemary, Maybe Sister Honoria added herbs earlier. Or maybe that's just wishful thinking. Your stomach growls. It's not hunger exactly. It's a dull ache. A reminder that you're still alive in this cold, hollow shell. That your body still wants things. Sleep, warmth, food. You give it none. Eventually, the candle gutters low. You replace it with a fresh one from the basket. As you light it, the flame flickers hard, dancing wildly before settling. The light spills across Odelia's face. Her eyes are open. You startle slightly, but she doesn't look frightened. Just alert, aware, for the first time all night. She blinks once, slowly. You offer a tight, tired smile. You don't speak. You're not sure she'd hear or understand, but she seems at peace, for now. You take her hand again. You continue whispering prayers. You lean into the rhythm, the flow, the cycle. You begin to lose yourself in it. There's no you anymore, just the candle, the cold, the prayer, the breath beside you. Eventually, another bell rings. It's dawn. The bell tolls in the pre-dawn dark, low and metallic, yes, echoing through stone corridors like a judgment whispered in iron. You flinch, instinctively, though you've been waiting for it. That sound means many things to many people. For you. Right now, it means your vigil is over. You rise from the rickety stool beside Sister Adelia's bed, every muscle screaming in protest. Your spine feels like it's been slowly turned into a twisted rope during the night. Your legs numb, and your hands trembling from fatigue. You have not slept. Not even once. That would have been a violation of the rule and a spiritual failure. You stayed awake. Mostly, maybe your eyes closed for one heartbeat. But no one saw. God saw, perhaps, but so far, he hasn't reported you. Sister Honoria enters the infirmary without a word. She moves like a shadow, quiet and stern. You nod to her, careful not to meet her gaze too long. She nods back barely and sits where you had sat all night. You place the guttered candle in her hand like a sacred offering and step away. You look once more at Sister Odelia. She's still alive. Barely. Her chest rises and falls like a leaf shifting in a breeze. Fragile and uncertain. Her eyes are closed now. The expression on her face unreadable. You don't know if she felt your presence. You don't know if it mattered. But you sat. You watched. You prayed. And in the end, maybe that's all you could offer. The convent courtyard greets you with wind and silence. The air is biting, colder than yesterday somehow. The sun has not yet risen, and your breath fogs around your face as you step into the cloister walk. Your fingers curl beneath your sleeves for warmth. There is none. You move toward the chapel. Prime is about to begin. Your habit feels heavier than usual. Maybe it's soaked from the damp infirmary. Maybe it's just fatigue weighing it down. You walk stiffly, aware of the quiet presence of others already shuffling toward the chapel. No one speaks. Of course not. Silence is a rule and a refuge. Inside, candles flicker on the altar, casting long, twitching shadows on the cold stone walls. You take your place at your assigned bench. Everyone has a place. Nothing is left to chance. Seating is hierarchical, measured, and merciless. You kneel again. Your knees feel like brittle porcelain. You kneel anyway. The psalms begin. Your voice joins the others, thin and scratchy. The Latin flows from your mouth like a song you no longer remember learning. The words don't mean much anymore, their sound. Repetition, obedience, a rhythm to mask the ache behind your eyes. You feel Sister Agnes gaze from across the aisle. Her face is impassive, but her eyes are sharp. She noticed your absence last night. She's probably wondering if you stayed awake, or if you were slumped in the corner, drooling onto your psalter. You stare straight ahead and pretend not to care. Historians still debate whether this level of scrutiny among nuns was a consequence of close, communal living or a tool of spiritual enforcement. Based on your daily life, it's both. You are never alone. Not in your cell. Not in the chapel. Not in your thoughts. After Prime ends, you file out with the others, bleary and silent. You're given a brief respite, just enough time to wash your face and reset your veil before the next assignment. You walk to the stone basin in the cloister courtyard, kneel, and splash your cheeks with water so cold it might as well be shards of glass. The chill wakes you up more violently than any bell ever could. You glance at your reflection in the water. It's distorted by ripples and dirt, but you can still see the shadows under your eyes, the cracked lips, the general haze of weariness. You look like someone who's trying to live a holy life through sheer force of will. Then, something catches your attention. Movement. Subtle. From the herb garden. You turn your head slightly and see Sister Agnes. She's not weeding. She's not collecting herbs. She's kneeling by the rosemary bush and bearing something a small bundle wrapped in brown cloth. Your eyes narrow. That's not standard behavior. She tucks the cloth beneath the soil carefully, pats the dirt down, and adjusts the surrounding leaves. When she rises, her hands are clean, too clean. She walks away, calm as anything, as if she hadn't just hidden something in plain sight. You stay frozen for a moment. You weren't supposed to see that. Quirky historical footnote. Some nuns kept secret caches, personal relics, letters, even banned texts. Known only to them, these tiny bundles were ways of clinging to forbidden knowledge, personal longing, or remnants of life before the convent. They were often hidden in gardens, behind altar stones, or inside hollowed-out manuscripts. You stand slowly. You don't approach the garden. Not yet. You file the image away. You don't know what Sister Agnes buried, but you're suddenly aware that even the most pious among you might have secrets buried beneath the rosemary. Later that morning, you're assigned to the laundry station. You carry a heavy basket of damp habits to the outdoor washing area, stone trough filled with water that hasn't been changed since someone invented the word stale. You roll up your sleeves and plunge your arms in. The cold is instant. It travels straight through your skin to your bones. You bite the inside of your cheek to stay quiet. You begin scrubbing. The cloth is rough. The soap is harsh. You kneel on gravel, your knees bruising more with every shift. The trough water smells like old soap, moss, and penitence. Your fingers are already raw. You work beside two other novices. No one speaks. Conversation is forbidden during manual labor, but their silence feels heavier today. Tense, like they saw what you saw, or maybe they've buried something too. You finish one habit, bring it out, and hang it on the line. It flaps wildly in the morning wind, like it's trying to escape. You reach into the basket for the next. Your knuckles are bleeding now. You ignore it. Blood on the fabric isn't ideal, but it's not uncommon. Somewhere behind you, a bell rings again. You close your eyes. You don't even wonder what it's for. You return to your cell not for rest, perish the thought, but because Sister Honoria instructed you to change into a clean habit. Your current one is still dripping on the line, stiff from cold and vinegar-scented soap. You peel it off carefully, every movement sending a fresh reminder through your sore shoulders and bruised ribs. The cloth has chafed your skin in places. You've developed a blister on your hip from where your belt rubbed all morning. You don't complain. You can't. Complaints are pride disguised as discomfort. The fresh habit is marginally better. It smells faintly of lye and something green mint, maybe? Or cabbage. Or both. You tie the belt with aching fingers and glance up at the tiny crucifix above your straw mattress. It still hangs crooked, like it's trying to slide away from its own responsibilities. You've thought about fixing it 100 times, but somehow, it feels more honest like this. Then comes the knock. 3 measured taps on your door. No voice. You open it slowly. Sister Hildegard is there. Of course she is. The abbess wants to see you, she says. Her tone carries neither warmth nor cruelty, just inevitability, like the sound of an approaching storm. You nod, bow slightly, and follow her down the corridor. Each footstep echoes more than usual, bouncing between stone walls like a litany of guilt. You try to replay the morning in your head. Did you leave something unswept? Did someone report your interaction with Sister Agnella? Did you look too long at Sister Agnes bearing her secret bundle under the rosemary bush? You reach the chapter room. The abbess is already seated, her fingers resting on an open copy of the Rule of Saint Benedict. The page she's marked is chapter 28, of those who relapse again and again. Not comforting. You bow low. You wait. She says, "You were seen in the herb garden this morning." You don't look up. Yes. Reverend Mother. And? I was returning from the wash basin and saw Sister Agnes near the rosemary. I noticed she was bearing something. A long silence. She says you were watching her. That stops you. Your breath catches. I wasn't watching. She raises a hand. You go quiet. There are things in this house best left where they lie. Curiosity is not a virtue here. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't have to. Her calm is more frightening than any anger would be. Return to your duties, she says at last, and closes the book. You bow again. You leave. You don't know whether you've just been reprimanded, warned, or marked for future scrutiny. It feels like all three. Outside, the sky has gone from gray to nearly blue. The sun is trying, half-heartedly, to appear behind thin winter clouds. It doesn't succeed. You're assigned to sweep the dormitory. A blessing, in a way indoors. Warmer, and a task that allows your mind to wander while your arms do the work. The dormitory is long and narrow, lined with 30 identical beds, wooden frames, straw-filled mattresses, each topped with a gray wool blanket. No one has a pillow. That would be indulgent. The air smells like dust and wool and dried sweat. You take up the broom and begin at the far end. The floor is uneven stone, scattered with straw bits, lint, and other tiny evidences of tired lives. You sweep slowly, rhythmically, keeping your eyes down. Halfway down the row, you hear it. A sniffle, then a muffled sob. You turn your head. Sister Agnella Young, barely 15, is curled in her bed, turned toward the wall, shoulders trembling. She's trying to be silent, failing. You pause. Speaking here is forbidden outside approved hours, but this moment feels like an exception. You kneel beside her bed. Whisper, "Are you ill?" She shakes her head. "Did someone hurt you?" She shakes her head again. Then, after a long pause, she whispers, "I miss my brother. I keep dreaming about him. He gave me a ribbon before I left home. I buried it under the cherry tree outside, but now I wish I hadn't." You don't know what to say. There's no comfort allowed in the rule, but still you whisper, "He would want you to keep going." She doesn't answer, but she does stop crying. Slowly. She sits up, wipes her face with her sleeve, and begins straightening her blanket. You return to your broom. Historians often describe medieval convents as havens for women, places of literacy, prayer, even quiet power, and sometimes they were, but just as often, they were prisons of silence and rules, where grief was scheduled and affection rationed. You keep sweeping. Near the head of Sister Agnes' bed, you notice something odd, a faint square of dust, disturbed, a place where something had clearly rested until recently. You bend down and gently run your hand over the spot, the faintest trace of a corner. Paper, perhaps. A booklet or a letter. You don't look further. You've had enough warnings for one day. Later, while cleaning the chapter room floor, you find it. Not the rosemary bundle, not Agnes' secret. Something different. A scrap of parchment tucked behind a lectern. Folded, crisp. You glance around. No one is near. You unfold it carefully. It's not a psalm, not Latin. It's a letter, my beloved. I have not forgotten you. The violets bloom in the place we met. That's all. You refold it. Place it exactly where you found it. Push it deeper into the shadow of the lectern. You whisper a quiet prayer not for forgiveness, but for preservation. Quirky historical detail? Some convents had secret postal systems couriers paid in silence. Messages folded into hems or sewn into seams. Forbidden letters happened. Love happened. Even here, the bell rings. You rise. It's Vespers now. Time to pray again. You walk to Vespers with your eyes down, body folded into itself like a prayer no one finished saying. The evening wind curls through the stone arches of the cloister like it owns the place, cold, biting, and smug about it. The setting sun doesn't warm you. It's only light now, not heat. The shadows stretch longer than you thought possible, like the day itself is being reluctantly pulled toward night. Your feet ache, your knees throb, your shoulders are stiff from scrubbing and sweeping and scrubbing again. But you move forward with the others, single file, no talking, no deviation, like ants in habits. The rule governs every step. If you veer too far left, someone corrects you. If you breathe too loudly, someone hears you. You reach the chapel. Candles are already lit all and trembling in their sconces. The smell of wax mixes with the cold scent of stone, and beneath it all, a faint aroma of human fatigue. The chapel is warm, but it's familiar, and familiarity here is the closest thing to comfort you'll get. You take your seat on the wooden bench that's been yours since you arrived. Not because it's labeled nothing is, but because the hierarchy is carved into memory and muscle. You kneel. The stone floor is unforgiving. You wince as your knees make contact. The bruises never really go away. They just rotate positions. Sister Beatrix begins the chant, Deus in adjutorium meum intende. You reply automatically, Damen. Ad adjuvandum me festina. Your voice sounds strange and your own ears dry, used, frayed at the edges, like old rope. You keep going. That's what you do. That's what everyone does. The psalms stretch on. The abbess is leading tonight, which means a slower pace. She emphasizes every word like each syllable might be its own prayer. You follow as best you can, eyes focused on the flickering candle ahead of you, trying not to let your mind drift, but it does. You think about Sister Odilia, who's still in the infirmary. You think about the vigil you kept the night before, how her fingers trembled against yours, how she whispered a word you still don't understand. Light. Was she asking for it? Seeing it? Missing it? Then sound. Behind you. The chapel door creaks open. Everyone stiffens. Just slightly. Two novices enter, half carrying Sister Odilia. She's bundled in blankets, her body hunched like a withered leaf. Her eyes are open, but not focused. Her lips move, but no sound comes out. They place her at the front, beside the altar. She lies on a thin mat, propped slightly upright by a rolled cloth. Her head lolls to one side. No one says anything. No one can say anything. Vespers continues. The chanting resumes, unwavering. You keep your voice low and steady, but your eyes keep flicking toward her. She's breathing, barely. Her hands are still folded over her chest. Holding a rosary is so worn it looks like it's been prayed into dust. Mainstream historical fact. It was uncommon in some medieval convents for the gravely ill to be brought into the chapel during evening prayers, especially if death seemed near. Being present for Vespers, even passively, was considered spiritually vital. Dying while the psalms echoed around you was seen as a gift, a holy send-off. You wonder if Odilia is aware of where she is, if she hears the chants, if she's already halfway gone. You push the thought away. Instead, you focus on the Magnificat. It's always the final part of Vespers. You sing it almost gently, the words rising with strange softness from so many tired throats. My soul doth magnify the Lord, and for a moment, you feel it. Not joy, not peace, but endurance. Like your soul is pushing through tar, dragging itself forward just enough to say, I'm still here. When Vespers ends, there's a brief transition. Not free time. Free time doesn't exist, but a pause enough time to complete your last chores before compline. You're handed a small wooden box filled with stubby candles. Tonight, you're in charge of checking the dormitory for fire safe day. It sounds responsible. It's actually just unpaid fire prevention. You walk the dormitory aisles, one by one. The candles flicker beside beds where sisters are already half asleep or kneeling in whispered prayer. You check for dripping wax, open flames, anything that might reduce the convent to ash before matins. Near the end of the row, something catches your eye. A bright flame. Too bright. You approach. It's Sister Agnes. Of course it is. She's seated on her bed, candle burning tall beside her, and in her lap a small brown booklet. Worn, familiar. You freeze. She doesn't look surprised to see you. She just meets your gaze, calm and flat. She closes the booklet slowly, places it under her mattress with care, then looks back up at you, as if to say, your move. You don't say a word. You just nod. Continue down the aisle, check the next bed, then the next. You return the box of candles to the sacristy. You feel something hollow open in your chest. Not fear, not anger. Just the knowledge that secrets don't hide for long here. And sometimes, knowing one is a burden more than a weapon. Historians argue whether convents were hotbeds of passive rebellion or havens of pure devotion. The truth, like most things, is somewhere between there were saints here, there were rule breakers, and there were women like you just trying to make it through Vespers without unraveling. You head back to chapel. Compline begins. The abbess steps forward before the chant. There has been an incident, she says, voice calm as slate. You stiffen. An unapproved text has been discovered. Silence. She looks at Sister Theodora. Not at you. Not at Agnes. Theodora rises. Her face is pale. She bows her head and walks forward. No protests. No explanation. The abbess leads her away, then turns back to the rest of you. And just like that, Compline begins. like nothing happened. Compline begins exactly as it always does, candlelight flickering in the chilled stillness of the chapel, 30 voices rising and falling in slow waves of Latin chant, and the stone floor biting into your knees with the familiar ache of repetition. The difference tonight isn't in the requalets, in the absence. Sister Theodora is gone. Not missing. Removed. It happened moments ago. The abbess had stepped forward just before the start of service, her hands folded over one another like they'd never known warmth. Her voice had carried with the eerie calm of someone announcing a storm already overhead. "There has been an incident," she said. "An unapproved text has been discovered." She turned her gaze to Sister Theodora, and that was all. No proof, no questions. Theodora didn't protest. She simply rose, bowed slightly, and followed the abbess out of the chapel like a lamb that understood exactly where the path was leading. Now, the rest of you are kneeling, praying, chanting, pretending that nothing is wrong, that there isn't a heavy absence beside Sister Bertilla's bench, that you're not all thinking, "What if it had been me?" You glance sideways. Sister Agnes, ever serene, kneels with perfect posture. Her hands are clasped. Her eyes are closed. Her expression suggests complete spiritual detachment. You wonder if her heartbeat even accelerated when Theodora was taken. You doubt it. You don't know if the abbess truly believes Theodora was guilty. You don't even know if a book was really found. But you do know that Agnes had one, and that you saw her bury something near the rosemary bushes. You also know that you stayed silent. And silence, here, is as much a choice as a confession. The chant moves forward. You move with it. Your lips form the words. Your throat is dry. Your knees throb. Your back aches. But your voice remains steady. Historians still debate how much authority abbesses wielded in medieval nunneries, and whether it was used more for discipline or for protection. Some were known for mercy, others for cruelty, and many for an eerie ability to know what was happening behind every closed door. Tonight, you suspect the abbess knows more than she says, but you also suspect she doesn't know everything. If she did, Sister Agnes would not be here, and you, well, you might not be either. Compline ends with the blessing. May the Almighty grant us a peaceful night and a perfect end. You whisper the words, wondering peaceful for whom? The candles are snuffed one by one, and the chapel darkens until only the moonlight from the narrow window slits remains. The silence grows heavier, denser, until even your thoughts seem too loud. You file out with the others, back into the cloister walk, where the stone is slick with dew and the arches echo the footsteps of tired women bound by rules and rosaries. No one speaks. Speaking is forbidden now. Even whispers carry the weight of sin after Compline. Back in the dormitory, you undress in silence, folding your habit carefully at the foot of your bed. You lie down on the straw mattress, pull the rough wool blanket up to your chin, and stare into the rafters. But sleep doesn't come. Your body is exhausted. Your mind is not. You keep seeing Theodora's bowed head, the shape of the bundle Agnes read from, the letter you found near the lectern, the scrap of parchment hidden under a bench, all of it swirling in your thoughts like smoke with no fire to reveal itself. Then footsteps, soft, careful. You freeze. A shape moves between the beds. Someone in a veil? Not the abbess. Not one of the younger novices. The silhouette is practiced, unhurried, confident. You keep your breathing slow. The figure kneels beside Agnes' bed. There's a pause. Then a hand slides under her mattress. Something is removed, wrapped in cloth. The figure retreats. You do not move. Your eyes follow the dark form until it disappears into the hallway. You lie awake for another hour, your heart pounding so softly it sounds like a second bell tolling in your chest. Eventually, sleep claims you, but it does not comfort you. You dream of candlelight and locked doors, of chanting that never ends, of a hand reaching out from the stone walls. You wake before the bell. The cold is sharper this morning, slicing into your skin like a reprimand. You rise slowly, bones aching from sleep that wasn't restful. You slip into your habit, fumble with the belt, and light the tiny candle near your bed. There's something on your blanket, a bundle, small, cloth wrapped, brown. You stare at it for a long moment before touching it. No note. You open it carefully. Inside, a piece of beeswax, a sliver of honeycomb, and a torn page from a psalter. The ink is faded, but the line is clear, and in the night, his song shall be with me. You blink slowly. It's not a threat, not a command. It feels like an acknowledgement. Someone saw you, someone is speaking back. But who? You glance around the dormitory. Everyone is asleep, or pretending to be. You hide the bundle behind a loose stone near your bed. There's a draft there's always been, but it makes for a convenient hiding place. You press your hand against the cold stone. You don't pray. You just listen. And for the first time in days, the silence doesn't feel entirely empty. The bell for lauds peals through the air, heavy and unhurried. You stir beneath your blanket before the final chime finishes echoing through the stone corridors. You haven't slept well. That little cloth bundle tucked behind the cracked wall of your cell seems to emit its own presence, as if the torn psalter page inside is whispering in a voice too faint for ears but too persistent for peace. You rise with the rest of the sisters, slipping into your habit by muscle memory. You know each fold, each tug of the belt, each method of tucking your sleeves to avoid dragging through soot or soup. You don't even notice how stiff your shoulders have become. Pain is just another layer of fabric now. You file into the chapel. Cold, always cold. The candles flicker against the early morning dimness. The frost on the windows shivers with golden light. Your knees sink once more into stone as you begin chanting lauds, your voice merging with the others in weary harmony. Domine, labia mea aperis. The words leave your mouth before you have time to think about what they mean. Most mornings, you don't bother trying. This morning, you try to listen, really listen, but your mind is already elsewhere back in your cell, behind the wall, with that scrap of beeswax and the line of scripture, and in the night, his song shall be with me. What did it mean? A message? A warning? Or just some lonely soul trying to say, I see you? You glance across the chapel. Sister Agnes kneels as usual, still as ever. Her veil perfect, her hands folded, her voice confident in its precision. There is no sign of guilt in her, but you're not sure anymore whether that's because she has nothing to hide, everything to lose. Compline the night before still sits like a stone in your stomach. The removal of Sister Theodora Quiet, sudden, efficient, no questions asked, no answers given, just an announcement, a bowed head, and footsteps vanishing into silence. You wonder if the abbess had looked your way instead, would you have bowed your head? Would you have followed, or would you have run? Historians often debate how much power abbesses held in medieval convents. Some were spiritual mothers, protective and wise. Others ruled like monarchs with veiled threats and strategic silences. Yours walks the line between both never cruel, but never uncertain. Her gaze alone is enough to make you feel like your soul's been audited. After lauds, Sister Honoria assigns you to the kitchens. A temporary mercy. Kitchens are warm. You follow the narrow hallway to the convent hearth room. The scent of onions and old smoke greeting you before the door creaks open. Inside, Sister Lucilla presides like a general of grease and soup. Her gray hair bound in a knot, and her sleeves rolled high above forearms that could crush walnuts. Without a word, she hands you a pile of carrots and a blade so blunt it feels like a spoon. You sit at the peeling bench, knees grateful for the break from stone floors. You begin your work scrape. Flick, drop, scrape, flick, drop. Orange peels collect like autumn leaves at your feet. After a while, Lucilla speaks without turning. You were close to Theodora. You pause. We shared evening prayer watch last season. She talked too much, Lucilla mutters, stirring a pot with a paddle as long as your arm. Too curious. You ever see a bird fly into a chapel window? Sometimes I think it's because they're too busy looking for the sky to notice the glass. You say nothing. The carrots squeak under your knife. She wasn't wicked. Lucilla continues. But cleverness burns fast in a place like this. Here, we survive by folding into the shadows. You nod, eyes down. A quirky historical tidbit. In many medieval convents, kitchens were the only rooms where soft conversation was quietly tolerated. Over the stew and soot, small secrets sometimes slipped through the cracks, whether prayer-related, heart-heavy, or heretical. You finish your carrots. Lucilla dismisses you with a jerk of her head. Instead of returning to your cell, you take a detour. No one questions you when you walk the long path through the herb garden. No one notices you veer slightly left, toward the rosemary bush. You kneel beside it and glance around. No one. You dig, slowly, carefully. Your fingers brush fabric. You pull up a bundle. Same twine, same cloth. You unfold it. Inside, a small ink drawing of a dove in flight. Ink faded but deliberate. Underneath it, a sliver of wax and another torn scrap of scripture. The spirit descended like a dove. It's not from the Psalter, it's from the Gospels. You stare at it for a long time. Then footsteps. Your heart stops. Sister Agnes appears around the hedge. She sees you, sees the open bundle in your lap, sees the dirt under your nails. Neither of you moves. Then she nods once, imperceptibly, and walks away. You kneel there for a moment longer, the bundle open in your lap, your breath fogging in front of you like incense with no altar. You rebury the bundle, quickly, smooth the dirt, stand. Your hands are trembling. Later, at Compline, you can feel it. Gabba's pauses mid-chant, only for a breath. But you see it. She's watching. You can't tell if it's you she's looking at or Agnes. But someone knows something, and someone is waiting. The next morning arrives not with dawn's light, but with the sound of that ever-reliable bell, tolling through the convent like a yawning mouth. You open your eyes before it finishes, already halfway into the motions of rising, dressing, pulling your veil into place, even before your thoughts catch up. The air is bitter, each breath like inhaling frost. You move slowly, body aching in places you don't even bother identifying anymore. The cot beneath you groans as you rise, and for a brief moment, you think about the little bundle still hidden behind the cracked stone near your bed, the scrap of parchment, the honeycomb, the message, and in the night, his song shall be with me. You don't touch it. You haven't since you hid it. But its presence lingers in your thoughts like incense long after the censers swung away. You dress carefully, not out of vanity, God forbid, but out of necessity. Any wrinkle in your veil, any carelessness in your sash, and you'll find yourself on the receiving end of Sister Honoria's wordless correction. A sharp look, a tighter task, an extra hour of kneeling during Vespers. In this place, error is currency, and someone is always counting. Lauds passes in the usual wash of Latin, repetitive, familiar, almost musical. You mouth the psalms, your voice blending with the 30 others, the chapel cold and blue with early morning light. You try not to think about the recent disappearance of Sister Theodorano. One mentions her anymore. In the convent, silence is how things end. But that's not what gnaws at you most. It's Sister Agnes, poised, controlled, eyes lowered in false humility. She chants without missing a syllable, but never once seems moved by what she's saying. You know what you saw her bearing that bundle in the rosemary? You know she had a forbidden book under her mattress, and yet she walks untouched, as if draped in some invisible immunity. You, on the other hand, feel watched. Every hallway creaks like it's reporting you. Every shadow seems to shift when you pass. You've begun to wonder if there's something on your face that gives it all away that you're thinking. And in a place like this, thinking is dangerously close to questioning. And questioning is a stone's throw from heresy. After lauds, Sister Honoria approaches you without a word and presses a small bundle into your hands. Scriptorium, she says. You nod, trying not to let surprise flash across your face. This is your first time being allowed inside. You know what that means. Someone, possibly the abbess, thinks you're trustworthy enough to handle scripture. Or, more cynically, that you're being tested. You make your way through the western corridor, past walls lined with faded tapestries and drafty windows that rattle when the wind is sharp enough. The scriptorium is quieter than any other room in the convent, quieter than the chapel, quieter than your own breath. It smells of ink, vellum, candle grease, and quiet ambition. Sister Euphemia glances up from her desk as you enter, but says nothing. She's illuminating a capital letter, the gold leaf already catching the light like frozen sunlight. Her hands are impossibly steady. You wonder if they were ever young. She gestures for you to take the cutting station, a small side desk with a leather mat, a ruler, and a pile of scrap parchment. Your job is to cut clean strips from damaged vellum sheets to be used as bookmarks. It's dull, precise work, but it's work near books, and that means someone thinks you can be trusted around knowledge. You unwrap the bundle Sister Honoria gave you. 2 inkwells, a dull knife, and a cloth to wipe your hands. You begin. The knife pulls through the parchment with a slight resistance, and each slice sounds like a whisper. You fall into the rhythm of measure, cut, smooth. Measure, cut, smooth. It's oddly soothing. Then you notice something. A faint pencil mark on the top corner of one sheet. A dove. Tiny. Barely visible, but clearly drawn. You pause. Flip to the next page. Another mark. A number, 7, and the next, 14. Your throat tightens. You try to recall it, Matthew 7:14. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Your breath slows. This isn't a coincidence. You glance at Euphemia. She doesn't look up, but you suddenly feel the weight of her peripheral awareness. You stack the sheets carefully, hide the marked ones in the center. You keep cutting, but you're rattled now. Not by fear exactly, but by something stranger. It feels like someone is leaving you a path. Through books, through symbols, through scripture. Later that afternoon, you're sent to sweep the dormitory. It's not glamorous work, but you don't mind. Solitude is valuable. Dust doesn't ask questions. You sweep between beds, the bristles of your broom scratching over the stone. You reach the foot of your own cot, and your eyes catch something strange. A sprig of rosemary, fresh, bound with red thread, placed right where your hem would brush it. You pick it up. It smells sharply of earth and pine and something ancient. Your heart begins to pound. You remember the rosemary bush, the one in the herb garden, the one where Agnes buried the bundle. You glance around. No one's watching. You slip the sprig into your sleeve. After supper, during the narrow window between chores and compline, you return to the garden, alone. The wind is rising, the sun almost gone. Shadows stretch between the herb beds. You kneel at the rosemary. The soil has been disturbed recently. You dig. Your fingers strike cloth. You lift a small bundle. Inside, a folded page, thick vellum. No scripture this time. Just a line, written in a shaky hand. 3 times shall the dove appear. Then you will know the gate. No signature, no name, just that. You exhale slowly. You want to laugh, but it catches in your throat. You're being recruited, or warned, or both. That night, during compline, you kneel with the others. But everything feels different now. Each verse of the Psalms seems to pulse with secret code. You can't stop scanning the shadows, the faces. Who else knows? Who is sending these messages? Euphemia? Agnes? The abbess herself? You glance toward the front of the chapel. The abbess is watching you. Not sternly, just watching, like she's waiting or testing. Your voice doesn't falter, but something in you shifts. The game has changed, and now it's your move. The morning greets you not with sun, but with a sky the color of wet stone. A dull gray light filters in through the narrow dormitory windows, and you wake before the bell. Pulse already ticking faster than usual. There's no comfort in waking early here, only extra moments to sit with your thoughts, to study the cracks in the ceiling, and to feel the air against your skin, cold and sharp and heavy with silence. You dress quietly, fingers stiff, habit rough against your neck. You adjust your veil twice, maybe 3 times. Not because it's crooked, but because you need to do something with your hands. The bundle hidden behind the loose stone in your cell wall has moved. Hasn't changed, but it still feels like it's humming at the edge of your senses. You know what it holds. The wax, the Psalter scrap, the message about the song in the night. You know it's not alone anymore. There's also the second bundle from the rosemary bush, the one with the dove. The message written in a careful hand. 3 times shall the dove appear. Then you will know the gate. And the first 2 doves, you've already seen them. You don't know who's behind this trail, but something is building. You can feel it. Like storm pressure, but holier, or more dangerous. Lauds begins as expected. You file into the chapel, kneel, and begin to chant. You know the words by heart now. They live in your bones more than your memory. They rise from you like breath. You chant, but your mind doesn't settle. Not on God, not on grace, but on symbols, numbers, patterns, doves. Agnes kneels 4 rows ahead, utterly still, impossibly still. Her back doesn't sway. Her hands don't twitch. You think again of how she saw you in the garden, digging up that second bundle, how she nodded, how she walked away without a word. There are so many things she could have said, and she chose none. After lauds, the daily work assignments are given. Sister Honoria, with her usual tight-lipped efficiency, reads them aloud, handing each task like a verdict. You wait, expecting scriptorium again, or maybe a return to sweeping or firewood duty. Instead, laundry. You blink. Laundry? You haven't been sent there in weeks. It's punishing work, cold and brutal, hands plunged into water that bites the skin raw, backs bent over steaming basins. It is not a place for reflection or silence. It is a place to suffer in motion, but you bow and accept the task. The laundry house is behind the eastern wing, near the well. The walk there is long, and your shoes are thin. Mud squelches underfoot. The door is already open when you arrive, and the smell hits you first. Damp wool, soap lye, and steam. Inside is Sister Amelina, already sleeves rolled, arms plunged into a vat of linen and ice. You join her. She doesn't speak. You scrub. You rinse. You wring cloth so tightly that your wrists ache after 10 minutes. The air inside the laundry is warmer than outside, but your fingers feel the sting of cold water like pins under the nails. You keep your head down. Your breath fogs the air. Time passes in movements, not minutes. Then something flutters. Out of the corner of your eye, you see it. From inside the hem of a wet, habit tucked neatly into the lining, a scrap of vellum slides free, heavy with water, sticking to the stone floor. Your heart jumps. You wait until Amelina turns to fetch more soap. You bend, pretend to wring the cloth lower, and scoop the vellum quickly into your palm. It's soaked, smudged, but legible. 3 words. Third dove tonight. That's it. You press your hand to your chest to calm your breath. The words feel like a signal. Not a suggestion, a certainty. You're not just being watched, you're being invited. The rest of the day passes in a fog. Your chores blur together, stacking firewood, reheating lentil stew, checking candle wicks. You're only half present, your mind turning over the words again and again. Third dove tonight. You wonder who sent the message. Agnes? Euphemia? Or someone you haven't even noticed yet? Mainstream historical fact. In medieval convents, notes and letters were forbidden unless sanctioned by the abbess. Yet women often found ways to communicate marking books, tucking slips of parchment into folded garments, or encoding words through embroidery. The truth is, devotion didn't always mean obedience, and obedience didn't always mean silence. As dusk falls, you feel the weight of the hour pressing down on you like a stone. You take supper in silence, a hunk of stale bread and cabbage stew. Your teeth ache from the hardness of the crust. You eat slowly, watching Sister Euphemia a few tables away. Her movements are graceful, methodical, like someone who's learned that efficiency is a form of self-protection. Beside her, Sister Agnes bows her head. After supper, you return to your cell. The bell for Compline hasn't rung yet. You light your candle, you retrieve the bundles, you lay them out side by side on the straw mat. One with the wax and the Psalter page, the second with the dove and the line about the spirit, and now the note from the laundry. 3 messages, 3 doves. The third is coming tonight. You breathe deeply, you feel dizzy, not from fear, from knowing. You wrap the bundles again and slide them back into the wall. Then the bell rings. Compline. You go. The chapel is colder than ever. Candles flicker, but they don't warm. You kneel in your usual spot, joints sore, veil slightly askew. You fix it quickly before Sister Honoria can correct you with a glance. You chant in Manus Tuas. Domine, your voice is soft, but even you watch, you wait. The abbess's pacing is slower tonight. Her eyes sweep the pews. You look up at the high, narrow window that faces east, and there it is. The third dove, perched on the sill. Real, still, watching. It blinks, then flutters once. You inhale sharply. No one else seems to notice. But you wait until the final blessing. When the sisters begin to rise, you don't move immediately. You linger. Sister Agnes pauses at the exit, looks back, meets your gaze, nods, then walks. You follow her, not too fast, not too slow, past the cloister walk, past the dormitory doors, into the narrow corridor behind the kitchens. She doesn't look back again. At the end of the hallway, she stops before an old wooden door, knocks once, pauses, knocks again. The door creaks open. Inside, candlelight. You step in, and there standing beside Sister Euphemius the abbess. She closes the door behind you herself, her expression calm, her hands folded. "Child," she says quietly. "You've seen the signs." You nod, but your voice is gone. The abbess gestures to the center of the room, an old table with a folded cloth, a book bound in dark leather, and a single dove feather placed neatly on top. "There is more to this life than the rule," she says. Then she lifts the cloth, and what lies beneath is not fear, or punishment, or judgment. It's a map, not of land, but of something else. And suddenly, your whole world shifts. The map lies spread across the wooden table like a living thing, creases veining through the old vellum like lines on a weathered face. It's not large, but it feels vast. Your eyes trace the looping symbols inked in careful hands, patterns unfamiliar yet somehow resonant. This is not a map of geography, not of roads or rivers. What lies before you is something else entirely. A diagram of ideas, maybe, or a cartography of faith that lives in the margins, outside the lines. It's old. The edges are dark with age, frayed in places, but the ink still holds. Lines drawn with intention and reverence, circles within circles, intersecting keys, veins wrapping into doves and stars and gates. One corner bears a Latin phrase, "Via interior iter silenti," the inner road, the silent path. The abbess stands beside it, smoothing the edges flat with her palms. Sister Euphemia steps back, her candle held low. The golden light spills across her face, casting her features in warmth and shadow. Behind you, Agnes closes the door and draws the latch gently. The soft click, final and unmistakable. No one speaks for a long moment. You are rooted to the stone floor, the walls pressing close. You feel as though you've stepped out of time or into some passage beneath it. Finally, the abbess looks up. Her eyes meet yours, calm and unblinking. "You've seen 3, she says simply. You nod, lips parted but unsure what to say. The signs were for you. She continues, "Not to frighten, to prepare." "Prepare for what?" you ask, your voice lower than you meant. Sister Agnes steps forward and unrolls the second cloth bundle on the bench. Inside, bound by twine, is a small codex, worn, no title. Just folded sheets of vellum pressed together by use and time. She lifts it with both hands, as one might lift a relic. "This," she says, offering it to you. You hesitate, then take it. The moment you touch it, this isn't contraband, it's confession. You open to the middle. The pages are written in neat, slanted Latin. Psalms, yes, but annotated. Not just copied, but interpreted, reworded, reimagined. Verses are rewritten as poetry, as metaphor, even as question. Some are marked with symbols: a dove, a star, a broken circle. There are prayers here you've never seen, reflections on silence. Not punishment silence, but intentional silence. Sacred silence. A form of listening. You flip slowly through the pages. One section is underlined. When the voice of God goes still, listen to the movement of your breath. You look up. This is not forbidden. Euphemia interrupts gently, merely forgotten. But it contradicts the rule. You murmur, only the surface of it. The abbess replies, the rule is structure, but beneath it, beneath the prayer schedule and the labor and the hierarchy, there has always been something deeper. This is the cloister within the cloister. You blink. That's not a metaphor? No, says Agnes. It's the name for what we are. And what are you? The abbess folds her hands. Seekers, listeners, keepers of the sacred questions. You laugh but quietly. Sacred questions? Yes. Euphemia says, questions the rule was never meant to silence, only hold, protect. Historians still argue whether there were unofficial, mystical sisterhoods within cloistered life small, private networks of nuns who preserved older or alternative theological ideas, often passed through symbols, embroidery, and song. Many dismiss the idea as later invention, but others point to marginalia, layered glosses, or unusual manuscripts passed between convents. And here, now, with this codex in your hand, it's no longer theory, it's alive. But why me? You ask, because you noticed. Agnes says, because you followed. You didn't panic. Euphemia adds, you didn't report. You listened. You closed the codex carefully. I don't know what to do. You don't need to, the abbess says. The cloister within isn't a rebellion. It's a remembering. You walk the same halls, say the same prayers, but you learn to read what's between them. Is that why Theodora was taken? You ask, heart thudding. The air shifts. She was too eager. Euphemia says, and not careful. She copied parts of the codex, asked questions out loud. The wrong people heard. She meant well. Agnes adds softly, your mouth is dry. Is she? She's in isolation. The abbess says, for now. If she remains silent, she'll be allowed back. If not, you feel sick. She knew the risks, Euphemia says. And what about me? You ask. If I say yes to this cloister, you live your days as before, the abbess says. But with new eyes, you keep the rhythm. You attend your duties, but you notice, and you wait. Agnes adds, you wait for signs. For others, you will not be alone. Your hands tremble slightly as you pass the codex back to Euphemia. She wraps it again in the cloth, binding it tightly. The abbess steps forward and presses something into your hand. A wooden medallion, smooth and round, carved with the same dove you've seen inked again and again. It's warm from her hand, but cools quickly in your palm. Keep it hidden, she says. When you doubt, hold it. When you forget, trace its wings. What happens now, you ask? The abbess smiles just barely. Now, you return to your cell. You rest, you rise, you sing. But tomorrow, you will see. Euphemia steps forward and unlatches the door. Agnes leads you back through the corridor. Neither of you speaks until the shadows thin and the familiar creak of the dormitory reaches your ears. She stops at the threshold of your cell. This path, she says quietly, is slow and lonely, but not without beauty. You nod. Then she's gone. You close the door behind you and sit on your straw bed. The bundles are still tucked behind the wall, quiet, but present. You place the medallion beside them. You sit for a long time in silence, and for the first time in months, it doesn't feel like absence. It feels like beginning. You wake to bird song, not bells, not footsteps, not the murmuring rustle of habits brushing stone floors, but clear, delicate birdsong sharp against the chill. So out of place, it makes you sit bolt upright. You've never heard birds at this hour. Not this close. Not like this. Your first thought isn't of morning prayers. It's of the third dove. Your fingers reach instinctively beneath your pillow, brushing the smooth edge of the wooden medallion. You grip it tightly, feel the carved wings, the tiny notches forming the outline of the bird you've now seen inked, etched, stitched, and, unbelievably, real. There's something about the medallion's weight small, light, but grounding that steadies you. You're not dreaming. You're not losing your mind. You slip the medallion into your sleeve and rise. The rest of the dormitory begins to stir. No one speaks. No one ever does. The rule requires silence until after lauds. The air is cold enough to turn breath to mist. You wash quickly using the cracked basin near your bed, blinking away sleep. Your hands are raw from yesterday's work in the laundry, but you barely notice. You move like someone called, not commanded. Your veil slips slightly as you dress, and you redo it twice, not out of fear of reprimand this time, but precision. Today feels like a test, but not from Sister Honoria, or even the abbess. Something deeper, something older. By the time the first bell tolls, you're already at your place in the chapel. Lauds passes in its usual rhythm, chanting, kneeling, rising, silence, breath. But everything feels sharper. You notice the way the light filters through the high lancet windows, softening the harsh lines of the nave. You see a spider's thread connecting the altar to a pillar. You count 17 sisters kneeling before you, an uneven number. Someone is missing. You don't dare turn around. You sing, but your voice wavers. The codex from last night, the one Euphemia showed you, still haunts your thoughts. Its alternate psalms, its reimagined prayers, its quiet courage. And that phrase, when the voice of God goes still. Listen to the movement of your breath. That line has nested in your ribs. After lauds, the assignments are read aloud by Sister Honoria, as always. Her voice is clipped and unyielding. She barely glances up as she speaks. You half expect to be reassigned to this scriptorium. Instead, she says, "Sister sweeping, outer walk." You bow, respond with the standard Fiat Voluntas Day, and step back. Sweeping is no one's favorite. It's cold, solitary, and exposed. But today, you welcome it. You take your broom from the storage rack and begin your slow work along the eastern cloister walk. Frost clings to the stone edges. Your breath fogs the air. Each scrape of bristle sounds like a whisper. And then you see it. At the base of the cloister wall, drawn in pale chalk, almost erased by dew, and wind is a symbol, a dove, faint, but there. Next to it, the number 26. Your heart skips. You glance quickly around. No one's nearby. Room 26. You know it. Every novice does. A disused storage room near the old pantry. Sometimes it's filled with surplus kindling. Sometimes not. It's dark, unheated, largely forgotten. Or intentionally forgotten. You keep sweeping. Slowly. Deliberately. You don't go there now too risky. Like someone could be watching. You hold the image in your mind. Trace the chalk dove in your memory until it feels burned into your vision. After your shift, you wash your hands at the well. The water stings with cold. You look up to see Agnes in the garden, pruning dead leaves from the rosemary bush, the same bush where the second message had been buried. Her movements are calm, exacting. She doesn't look at you. You resist the urge to nod. Instead, you head back inside, wait for the rhythm of daily tasks to resume. Midday prayers, more sweeping, candle maintenance. It all blends into a sort of external movement, while your mind continues to walk that inner path. Finally, just before Vespers, you make your move. You slip away down the narrow back hallway, one rarely used during these hours. Your steps are soft, practiced. Room 26 is ahead its wooden door marked faintly with Roman numerals long since scuffed by years of damp and neglect. You press your ear to the door. Silence. You push. The door creaks open. It's dim inside. The only light seeps in from a small window high on the wall, smeared with grime. The air smells like damp wood and thyme. You step in, and there it is. On the far wall, a tapestry. Small, threadbare. The image faded but unmistakable. A dove, wings outstretched, flying above a stylized gate. Beneath the image, Latin words stitched in uneven gold thread. Aperi mihi portam vitae. Open to me the gate of life. You approach slowly. This isn't ordinary convent decoration. No other embroidery uses this phrasing, and certainly not that image. Your hand brushes the fabric. It's coarser than it looks. Some of the stitching is newer, touched up, others decayed. Then you see it. In the corner of the room, a wooden box. Small, unlocked. You kneel. Open it. Inside, a stack of folded parchment. Dozens. Some bound together by string, others loose. You lift the top page. It's a letter, written in the same hand as the note from the rosemary garden. Theodora. You read slowly. She speaks of the early days of her calling, how prayer was once alive to her, not obligation. How she discovered the cloister within the cloister. How it frightened her. How it thrilled her. She writes about silence as a language, about seeing scripture not as chains, but as a lens. One line stands out. I began to wonder if the veil is meant to blind us from the world, or blind the world from what we might become. The parchment trembles in your hands. You don't take it with you. You place it back, gently, and close the box. You stare at the tapestry for a long while. Then you kneel in the center of the room. Not to pray in the usual way, not to recite or chant, but to listen. Truly listen. No sound answers you, only the rush of your own breath, the steady beat of your heart. But somehow, that's enough. Historians still debate whether nuns in the medieval period had hidden rooms for contemplation, or whether secret communities passed alternate spiritual writings hand to hand. Some say these are fantasies, projected backward. But what if they're not? What if this room is one of many unmarked, undocumented, where sacred silence survived? You rise, slowly, knees stiff. Before leaving, you press your fingers to the tapestry. A pledge. A promise. Then you slip out, close the door, and return to Vespers. No one sees you enter the chapel. But Agnes glances your way, just once. And then the chant begins again. The chants rise around you, but your mind is elsewhere. The faces of the sisters blur. The stone columns dissolve into mist. You're back in room 26 in that hush, in the dim, in the softness of the tapestry threads under your fingertips. That dove, that gate, the words stitched in gold. Aperi mihi portam vitae. Open to me the gate of life. You're starting to understand it wasn't just a prayer. It was a request, maybe even a challenge. Vespers ends and you stand with the others, your joints aching faintly. The cold has returned with a vengeance, curling under your habit, biting at your knees, but you hardly feel it. The fire in your thoughts burns hotter. You follow the line of sisters out into the cloister walk, the sky outside already darkening, painted with the dull charcoal of evening. Soon it'll be time for the final meal and then compline, but not yet. You take a detour, you head to the kitchen. The abbess had once said, if you walk both roads, you must do so carefully. That means showing up, working, obeying, no suspicion, no missed chores. And tonight, that means lighting the fires for the evening stew. The kitchen is still empty when you arrive. Only the smell of dried leeks and stored onions linger. You kneel by the hearth, strike the flint, coax the flame. It crackles to life, slowly warming the air. You reach for the firewood pile and stop. Something's different. Nestled among the logs, a piece of cloth. You draw it out carefully. It's a simple linen wrap, folded once. Inside, a scrap of wax-sealed parchment. You break it open. It reads, tomorrow, herb garden, hour of sext, south wall. The root remembers. There's no signature, no symbol, but you know, the cloister within the cloister is still speaking. You hide the note in your apron, then finish your chore, stack the wood, tend the flame, stir the stew. When the others arrive to serve the bowls and fill the pitchers, you are already in place. Veil perfect, face calm. You eat without looking up. You swallow without tasting. When compline ends that night, you lie on your straw cot and try to calm the noise in your mind. But the silence now is too full. You wonder, who is the root? What are you meant to find? Sleep comes, but only barely. You drift in and out, your thoughts looping like the inked spirals on the codex pages. You dream of gates, of doves made of thread, of songs sung backwards. By the time dawn returns, you feel hollowed out but steady. You move through your tasks mechanically, scrub the steps, haul water, return every greeting with a bow. You barely register what others are saying. You are already counting the hours. Then comes sext the midday prayer. You kneel, you chant, and as the final amen is whispered into the shadows of the chapel, you rise and slip out the side, to the herb garden. The sun overhead is wan and watery, barely warming the frozen beds. Dead stalks of fennel sway in the wind. Most of the sisters avoid this corner in winter. It's too barren, too quiet. But to you, it feels sacred. You walk to the south wall. There, hidden among the shriveled thyme and rosemary. You see it. Not a person. A small patch of disturbed earth. Kneeling, you brush the soil away with your bare fingers. It's frozen in parts, sticky in others. Your nails dig into something hard. You lift it. A root, gnarled, wrapped in cloth. Inside the folds, another parchment. This one is longer, a page torn from a book, but not scripture. A reflection. It speaks of the first vow at poverty, not chastity, not obedience, but attention. To the breath, to silence, to the God who hides not in thunder, but in the stillness between verses. It ends with one line, written in a firmer hand. You are not here to vanish. You are here to remember. Your breath catches. You slip the page into your habit and cover the root again with soil. No one must know it was disturbed. As you rise, you see someone watching from behind the old fig tree near the convent wall. It's Euphemia. She says nothing, only nods, then disappears. Later, in the scriptorium, you find your hand steadier than usual as you cut strips of damaged vellum. The others speak in low murmurs, heads bent over illuminations and transcriptions. You steal glances at their pages, and for the first time, you realize just how many notes lie in the margins. Not all of them Latin, not all of them sacred. Some are personal, some are poetic, some are questions. Who do you say I am? What happens when prayer runs dry? Did Mary feel fear before her yes? And suddenly you wonder, has this always been here? Right under your nose? A web of invisible questions strung like thread through the daily rhythms? You leave the scriptorium with a mind buzzing, veins tingling. Historians still debate how much autonomy medieval nuns truly had, whether their spiritual lives were dictated entirely by abbots and bishops, or if they quietly carved out their own authority in scriptoria, gardens, dormitories. Perhaps, as you now believe, the truth lived not in official decrees, but in margins, in root bundles, in silent nods from shadowed corners. That night, during Compline, you kneel with the others, but the words of the Psalms take on new shape in your mouth, not just recitation, but reflection. You catch Euphemia's eye once. She mouths something silently. You think it's, remember. You do. You will. And you know now. This isn't the end of the path. It's the threshold. The days that follow are full of sameness, but underneath that sameness, something begins to crackle like hidden fire. To anyone looking in from outside, your life hasn't changed at all. You still rise with the first bell, veil your hair, murmur your way through lauds and prime, eat your meals in silence, take your turns in the kitchen, the laundry, the scriptorium. You still chant the Psalms with practiced rhythm, bow when you're meant to, kneel when required. You still smile politely at Sister Honoria and keep your eyes lowered in the presence of the abbess. But inside, you're living a double life. A richer one, a stranger one, a truer one. You've begun to see the threads between things, as if the entire convent is a tapestry and you've only just noticed the embroidery under the surface. What once looked like dull routine now pulses with secret meaning. A twist in a vine on the cloister wall, a folded linen placed just so on a chapel bench, a small stone shaped like a heart resting by the garden path. You wonder, has this all been here, waiting for someone to see it? You are not the only one walking this deeper path. That much is becoming clear. You notice Sister Euphemia arranging the firewood in the shape of a cross. You see Agnes tracing a spiral in the dust behind the bread oven. You catch glimpses of Sister Juliana quiet, dreamy-eyed lingering at the statue of Saint Scholastica, longer than necessary, fingertips brushing the base where a small dove is carved. You begin to test the waters. One afternoon, you leave a sprig of rosemary on Juliana's bench during tierce, just a small one, wrapped with a red thread. No name, no explanation. The next morning, she hums the wrong note during the Gloria Patrid Liberately, just one beat behind, just enough for someone paying attention to notice. You meet her eyes after the chant. She doesn't smile, but she doesn't look away. The cloister within the cloister is growing, quietly, steadily, like roots beneath stone. It's not a rebellion. You understand that now. It's not an uprising or a protest. It's more like a remembering, a living memory passed through gestures, through breath, through objects and glances and silence. You can't force someone into it. You can only offer signs and wait to see if they respond. Historians still debate whether such subcommunities ever existed inside medieval nunneries. Some claim there's no concrete evidence of clandestine spiritual groups among cloistered women, no written manifestos, no recorded doctrines. But maybe that's the point. Maybe it was meant to be written. Maybe it was always supposed to be passed hand to hand, heart to heart, across centuries in the spaces between the lines. One evening, after helping in the kitchens, you find a folded cloth tucked beneath the firewood crate. It's coarse linen, stained slightly with ash. Inside is a small wax tablet, the kind used for note-taking or calculations. Pressed into its surface is a message. The door is not the end. It is the return. No signature, no symbol. Just the message. You trace the words with your fingertip until the wax warms slightly under your skin. That night, as you kneel during compline, your mind buzzes. Not with fear, but with longing. You think again of Theodora. She disappeared from this life without a sound. Was she taken? Or did she simply step through a gate the rest of you could not yet see? And if so, where did it lead? The next morning, you are sent to the herb garden for frost pruning. The wind bites. Your fingers are stiff even through your gloves. The rosemary has gone brown at the tips, the sage brittle and dry. As you clip and gather, your hand brushes something unusual buried in the soil beside the southern wall. It's another bundle. This one is wrapped in oilcloth, old, carefully tied. You glance around. No one's near. You open it slowly. Inside is a leaf of parchment, folded twice. On it is a line from the apocryphal Gospel of Mary, where the mind is, there is the treasure. Beneath that, room 3. After Vespers, come alone. You fold the parchment and slide it into your boot. Room 3. That's one of the old novice cells now, only for overflow or for short-term isolation. You feel your pulse shift. After Vespers, you slip away, making your way toward the old hallway. The light is dim, the torch is low. Room 3's door is cracked open. You push it gently. Inside is darkness, then candlelight, and the abbess, alone. She looks up at you calmly. You bow. She gestures for you to sit. You do. She doesn't speak immediately. Then quietly, the root is awake. You nod. You don't know what else to say. She studies you. Not sternly, not coldly. Like a gardener examining the first signs of green in a long-wintered soil. There is a path for those who cannot walk the rule blindly, she says. It winds. It waits. But it leads. You meet her eyes. Do you ever doubt it's real? The abbess smiles faintly. Every day. Which is why I return to it. Every day. You both sit in silence. The candle flickers. And in that quiet, you understand. The cloister within isn't a place. It's a way of seeing, a way of being, and you've chosen it. Not because you were recruited, but because you kept noticing. And noticing became listening, and listening became walking, and walking became belonging. That night, back in your cell, you lay down with the wax tablet beneath your pillow. You sleep without dreams, but you wake with clarity. You are not hidden. You are becoming. The morning begins, as it always does, with Bellsoft, low, tolling through the still dark air like an old friend gently rousing you from sleep. You sit up slowly, feeling the chill curl around your ankles before your feet touch the floor. The medallion is still there under your pillow, pressed warm and flat against the fabric. You hold it in your palm for a moment, tracing the wings with your thumb. Today, something feels final. Not an ending, exactly, but the edge of something, like the last page of a chapter that took years to write in silence. You veil your hair, pull on your woolen cloak, and move down the corridor in line with the others. The dormitory is hushed. The air is heavy with incense and candle smoke and faint morning breath. No one speaks, of course, but as you pass Euphemia near the stairs, she lets her fingers brush yours ever so slightly. A pause. A tether. You walk on. Lauds fills the chapel with layered chantier voices from the front rows. The low, steady hum of older sisters behind. You sing with them, but your voice is softer today, not from weakness, but reverence. You listen more than you speak, because now you know the Psalms aren't just songs. They're signals. After the final line, you bow and rise, but instead of heading to the kitchens or the workyards, you turn toward the old library. It's not your assigned duty. No one stops you. The librarian sister Thirst looks up but says nothing as you enter. She's dusting the shelf where the rule is kept. You nod to her once respectfully and move to the back wall. There, tucked in a forgotten alcove, is a collection of hymnals and devotional books, rarely used. You kneel beside them and reach behind the lowest row. Your fingers find it quickly now. The box. You pull it free. Theodora's letters. The pages you've read before are still there, but now there are more. New ones, folded carefully, different hands, different inks, all speaking in the same voice. You unfold one. We sing not because we know the truth, we sing because we long for it. Our chant is the echo of a voice we have never heard, but trust anyway. Another. The gate opens inward, always inward. And another, shorter still. We are the root and the bloom, the silence and the bell. You sit with the letters for nearly an hour. You do not cry. Not because you aren't moved, but because emotion now feels sacred. Too sacred for tears. As though something in you is being gently rewritten. Not erased. Not overwritten. Just deepened. Before you leave, you add your own note. Your first. You write carefully, with the stub of charcoal tucked in the box corner. I saw the dove. I opened the gate. I will not walk backward. You fold it, place it at the top of the stack, and return the box to its hiding place. You leave the library with a straight back. There's a lightness to your step that surprises you. Not joy, not quiet, but something better. Rootedness. A steadiness you hadn't realized you were missing. At dinner that evening, Sister Honoria reads aloud a passage from the Rule of Saint Benedict. Let the novice reflect on the rule often, that she may understand the burden of obedience. Her voice is sharp, her eyes scanning the room. You lower your gaze, but inside you think, let her watch. You are not afraid of being seen anymore, because now you know something she doesn't. The rule is not the end. The rule is the beginning. It's the outer path. You are walking the inner one. Later, after compline, as you lie in your cot and the dormitory fills with the quiet breathing of nearly 50 veiled women, each one cloaked in mystery, you hold the medallion again. You close your eyes, and this time, the silence is not absence. It is presence. It is fullness. It is home. So now we drift. The wind outside the convent walls softens into nothing. The night pressing close around stone and shadow, where echoes of prayer still hum in the cracks. You lie back, feel the straw beneath your spine, the slow rhythm of your breath, keeping time with a heartbeat older than the rule. Older than parchment. Older than the abbey itself. You've come so far since your first frightened steps through those iron-bound gates. From woolen robes that chafed, to chants that felt like cages, to the unbearable stillness of your first silent meal. But look at you now, listening not just with your ears, but with your whole self. Reading symbols others pass over, answering questions no one dares speak aloud. The cloister within the cloister still moves around you, quiet as moth wings, steady as tide. You've become part of it. Not its keeper, not its master, just one more sister in a long line of women who have whispered through the centuries. There is more than what they see. Let that knowledge settle into your chest now. Let your shoulders soften. Let your breathing deepen. Because here, in this sacred hush, no one will ask anything more of you. You have already chosen. You have already become. And the gate you know is open. Forever inward. Forever home. End of story. Sweet dreams.